Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. While I would have loved to be there in person, I'm grateful for the opportunity to participate remotely today. It is really an honor for me to participate in this very important forum on democracy and shared human values. And I want to thank you all for your contribution and attention. US President, in his 2022 States of the Union address, framed the current world situation as a battle between democracy and autocracy. This theme continued at the Democracy Summit the following years, where he conveyed a sense of optimism. The democracies were flourishing while autocracies were feeding. However, I struggle to understand this worldview, particularly as a Westerner grappling with the universal appeal of Western liberal democracy. Philosopher Domenico Losurdo reminds us that true democracy, even in its most basic form, necessitates overcoming three key discriminations: sexual or gender discrimination, censorship, and racial discrimination. Indeed, the advancement in Western democracies have hinged on the crucial contributions of labor and socialist movements who fought to break down these barriers. This progress wasn't simply a unilateral choice, but rather the result of confrontation with forces perceived as antithetical to democratic ideals. But in a world where, according to Biden, democracy strengthens, a crucial question arises. Have this discrimination truly been overcome? A closer look reveals a sobering reality. These issues are more prevalent in the West today than immediately following World War II. Women have certainly gained political rights, but the persistent gender pay gap exposes the continued struggle to fully implement democratic rights within our societies. In Europe and many other countries, a clear tendency exists to limit access to politics for those without significant personal wealth or backing from powerful special interests. On the international stage, we see the West, particularly its leading nation, acting as if it has an inflated sense of sovereignty, one that extends far beyond its borders. This translates to them wielding immense power internationally, while simultaneously disregarding the right of other countries, especially those within their sphere of influence, to determine their own destinies. This blatant disregards for self-determination exposes the ongoing struggle for democratic principle to truly guide international relations. The end of Cold War ushered in a wave of neoliberalism and neoconservatism that shook the very foundations of Western democracies. It exposed, perhaps more clearly than ever, the complexity and contradiction inherent in the concept of democracy, both in theory and in practice. In the early 1990s, with the Soviet Union defeated, a sense of triumphalism swept through Europe and the West. Liberal democracy seemed destined for ultimate victory, marking the end of history, as some proclaimed. However, the mechanism that fueled democracy's expansion, wealth redistribution, and power sharing began to falter. The ruling class gradually eroded social and political gains made in previous decades, shrinking opportunities for democratic participation. This is reflected in the rising tide of voter apathy. Elections are no longer a clash of distinct political visions, but a contest within the same elite. The wealthy exert increasing influence while representative bodies lose their meaning due to the lack of real power redistribution. The world stage has witnessed a troubling decline in liberal democracy. This isn't just a domestic issue. The rise of so-called democratic interventionism masked a new wave of colonization. It was an attempt to homogenize the world, ignoring the rich tapestry of historical and political realities across nations. Today, we are witnessing the culmination of this misguided trend. Thankfully, with new voices rising from the world's heart, we can finally dismantle this outdated attempt to rewrite history. There is a new dawn breaking. While Western democracies seems to be struggling, other parts of the world are experiencing a democratic expansion shaped by their unique historical experience. Look at China. Lifting 800 million people out of poverty is a monumental contribution to global democracy and human rights. Or consider the Palestinian situation now. When China or even the UN, differently from other countries, are calling for an end to all form of punitive violence against the defenseless population of Gaza and for the Palestinian right to create their own state, well, we are facing a process for the democratization of international relations. What we are living is the birth pangs of a new world order, one that doesn't seek to replace hegemony with a new single power, but foster a cooperative and peaceful global governance where all nations can contribute. This is why I'm deeply honored to be here today. Forums like these are vital steps in democratizing international relations. My sincere gratitude goes to the Chinese government and the Communist Party of China for facilitating this discussion. You know, in the West, a sense of pessimism often prevails. We see a stark divide between our democracy and the rest of the world, with no room for dialogue or exchange. But China's unique history and culture offer a powerful counterpoint from that of the West. In particularly, China's rise, with all the consequences, presents an extraordinary opportunity to relativize the concept that Western capitalism has of itself in confrontation with the rest of the world. This practice, I'm sure, can only strengthen our own democracy. Thank you very much for your attention.